Are you a business owner or are you a business operator? Do not put the word someday. Someday does not exist. And I think there's a difference between being productive and being busy. It's better to have an imperfect start than to have no start at all. Procrastination, maybe due to childhood trauma, traumatic past.
What if the key to business success isn't about strategy, but rewiring your brain? I'm Linda Vo, and this is the Inspired by Success podcast. Today's guest, Dr. Albert Bramante, is a psychology expert who discovered that the same mental tools performers use to overcome stage fright can help entrepreneurs conquer fear and self-doubt in business. As founder and CEO of Bramante Artists, Albert has spent 20 plus years studying why some people rise while others sabotage their own success. His Rise Above the Script framework helps high achievers silence fear, crush imposter syndrome, and unlock their true potential on stage or in the boardroom. In this episode, we'll explore how fear could be your biggest business breakthrough, the mental patterns that hold entrepreneurs back, and how to build a mindset that fuels lasting growth. Let's dive in with Dr. Albert Bramante, the expert showing us that business success starts from the inside out. Welcome to the show, Albert.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much for inviting me and having to be here.
It's good to have you. So tell us about your story and what you do for our audience.
I started off as a psychology major. I mean, that's how I became interested in this type of work and mindset work. And through some type of happenstance and so coincidences, I found myself connected to my roots of like creativity and show business. So I took some classes in college. I was involved in a drama club in high school and college. And so I was very interested in acting in the cinema and just really, really pursuing my creative angle, and outlet. So after I graduated with a master's degree, I started working in New York City because it's right around 9/11. And so I started working with some actors. And I realized for me, I enjoyed working behind the scenes more than I did in front of the camera. So I kind of transitioned into like casting a little bit and then eventually talent management or talent and then having my own talent agency for several years now. And the one thing I noticed with working with actors, which applies to a lot of people, was there was a high degree amount of self-sabotage that was happening, a high degree of self-sabotage by students. So it was kind of like a major problem. So I decided to do my PhD research among self-sabotage. And so that kind of like led me down the kind of like that rabbit hole of studying self-sabotage, why we do it. At first, I was just trying to understand it first. Like, why would somebody do this? Be their own worst enemy or, get in their own way. Because that's really what true self-sabotage is. Not just for actors, but for anybody. Business owners, service providers, high achievers, and peak performers can often find themselves self-sabotaging.
Do you think it's like it comes from our conditioning and upbringing? Because a lot of the guests that I've spoken to as well, from the age of 1 to 7, the way that they've been brought up actually affects their belief system and their self-worth. So therefore, if you weren't raised in the best environment, we tend to have that belief system ingrained with us, and therefore we self-sabotage and we sometimes feel like we're not worthy. Or what are your thoughts on that? And where does this self-sabotaging belief system come from?
You pointed out a good point. It is definitely in our upbringing. It starts with maybe little micro traumas that we may experience. And I don't mean like, they don't have to be like a significant event, but maybe your parents favored your older brother or your older sister than they favored you or showed more attention there. Or maybe you received messages about like, you're just not that smart or that intelligent. Even if it was indirectly or not necessarily an insult, but it would be like, our family is not good in math or our family is just not smart. And so what then happens is you start to internalize the feedback that you're getting as a small child. Now, you may not even consciously remember hearing this stuff, but it still became ingrained in your subconscious mind and your internal programming. So really your inner critic, which is what we're usually experiencing now as an adult, that inner voice that may be telling you some critical things about yourself, maybe really started from hearing messages from your family that you may have interpreted in certain ways.
Yeah, that's true. So, how do you know when someone's mindset is actually sabotaging their business success? Sometimes people do, like you said, unconsciously, and some people, they need to be self aware of it, I guess. But what are the signs?
Well, the signs are like when people are like dropping the ball on things. They're not taking advantage of all the opportunities that's presented to them, as business owners. They're not going to networking events. They're not, learning the new model or staying abreast of the current trends in their market. Or they're coming up with excuses as to why they can't be successful or why they're not achieving that success. And sometimes it takes a good coach or a mentor to kind of gently but firmly say, look, you may be getting in your own way here. So not keeping up with the trends or just coming up with excuses as to why this can't be done. I don't have enough time. I'm too busy. Because,
Yeah,
we see this a lot with entrepreneurs. You'll hear the excuse, I'm too busy. I can't, do this. I don't have enough time. But you do have time to scroll on social media for 15 minutes or 20 minutes on your phone or to watch Netflix. Even
yeah,
that 20 minutes, you could have done something, that could have advanced your business.
yeah. That, and oftentimes people procrastinate as well. So, I'm just trying to understand the deeper psychology part of it as well. What's your biggest psychology mistake you see entrepreneurs make?
Definitely say procrastination, but not looking at the root cause of procrastination. See, we've been conditioned in society to look at procrastination as sort of laziness and a fault, but actually, we're starting to find more and more research that procrastination may be a trauma due to childhood trauma, traumatic past. So, in reality, we might be responding to trauma, in a sense, procrastinating, like we're reacting to trauma that we experienced. That may be an indication you find yourself being a chronic procrastinator. That might be an indication that you might need some coaching or, even some therapy to kind of process whatever is that you're feeling, because until that is processed or dealt with, what you're going to see, you're still going to keep procrastinating. And also, another thing that's heavily related to procrastination is perfectionism. It's that I need everything to be perfect. With entrepreneurs, if they're especially in a service provider, I need to take this extra class or I need this extra certification before I can start working with customers or clients. I need this extra, training. And the unfortunate thing when there's a loop, you'll never have enough training if you
Yeah.
look at that. Like, you'll never be ready if you keep that mentality up. So the important thing is there's no such thing as perfection. It's better to have an imperfect start than to have no start at all. You can start seeing clients are still doing things to build your business and still learn at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. Take us back on the trauma thing, because that's something that I've spoken to a lot of guests about as well. And we all have trauma as well. But in terms of procrastination, taking us back to the trauma episode, and you mentioned we have to process that. Yes, it depends on the severity and whether you're not seeing a therapist or not. But just say that you want to get to the bottom of it. How do we process this trauma in order to remove this block? Because I know that sometimes subconsciously these traumas create these blocks which affect our success and our mindset. So take us through a process on how to process a certain trauma that could be blocking us and making us procrastinate.
First key is to really understanding that link, which most people are kind of surprised to find that link. So that would be the first thing, is to really internalize that there is that link and that there is that trauma. There's no such thing as we're able to change the past. We can't do that. That's not possible. To change what happened to you. But what we can change is your reaction, your interpretation of that. So perhaps that's where we would start. Is okay, let's bring up that incident. Let's talk about that incident. Now, how are you responding? What is your reaction to that incident? Because what we want to do is reduce the charge, the emotional charge of that incident to a point where you can almost describe the incident that happened to you like what you ate for breakfast yesterday, neutral. This is
So
what
you're
happened.
saying go back into that incident. I've heard that people say that you have to feel that, go instead of pushing that trauma and avoiding the pain or avoiding that emotion. You have to go back into that feeling and feel it in order to process it. Is that correct?
Sort of. I mean, you don't have to stay there. I mean, there's no way of torturing yourself. But a lot of times, especially if you spent years burying it behind you, that's a myth. Like, you can't bury something like that. You may think you can, but it's going to come out in other ways. It's going to come up and it's going to fester in other capabilities. It's like the pot of boiling water, and I can put a lid on that. Eventually, the lid's going to blow up, and I'm going to have a mess in my kitchen. And the same thing goes with our thoughts and our behavior. If you keep suppressing something and burying it underneath, under so many layers, eventually it's going to come up and explode. And then you're going to have a breakdown or a disaster on your hands. So the important thing is maybe feel it temporarily, or at least, especially if you've been numb to it like so many years. So maybe the first time is feel it for a bit, but then now let's neutralize that feeling. So this way, we're not changing the pet, but we're changing the reaction to it. And we're moving, we're forgiving. If it involves other people, we're forgiving them. That's a big thing, forgiveness. And not only is it important for the perpetrator who causes trauma, but also yourself.
Yep.
Because a lot of times what really brings the pain into trauma is often self-blame. I'm not worthy, or what did I do, or there's something about me. So it's like that victim mindset or victim mentality. So change that to not just surviving, but thriving. And that includes a lot of forgiveness of yourself too.
Yeah, I've only learnt about that concept before too, because me personally, on another level, I remember talking to a guest and telling my story because I've had quite a challenging upbringing as well. But when I was telling the story about my mum and the fact that she left, and I was still feeling it and I could tear up. And I know that I think because over the years I've just been pushing that emotion aside. And, if you don't deal with it, it does come up in certain like situations, like you said. But do you think that telling and talking to somebody about it over time, and then, like you said, forgiving them, like I've learned to forgive, but recently learning to forgive myself as well. Only heard of that concept recently, but doing that, but sharing it with others in order to not feel that emotion each time I share it. Because like I had to get up on stage and tell my story as well. And I guess the more times I do it, the less it affects me, I suppose. Just learning about what did this lesson teach me? What did this chapter in my life teach me? Mum came into my life for a reason. What was that reason? Like these are the questions that we need to ask ourselves as well in order to help process that emotion.
Yes.
Do you agree?
What you're doing is you're turning that into a strength. You're turning that into a virtue. You're turning that whole experience made you stronger. Maybe not having your mom actually helped you appreciate relationships now in your life. You know what it's like not to have that. So now the people in your life, you'll make sure to work even harder to show them that you love and you care about them. So I would say definitely it makes you stronger for that reason. And just talking about it is important too, because it's neutralizing it, and you've been burying it for so long.
What's the secret weapon behind every top CEO and entrepreneur? A game-changing executive assistant. Hermessi gives you access to elite EAs who supercharge your productivity. From payroll and admin to social media and customer support, they handle it all so you can focus on growth and big picture decisions. These aren't your average assistants. They're expertly trained, thoroughly screened, and equipped with the latest AI tools to work smarter and faster. Ready to delegate and dominate? Get 15% off your first 2 months with code INSPIRE15. Don't wait. Visit Hermessi, that's HERMESSI.com, and take back your time today.
It's time to kind of take that out of hiding, because you never know. There may be someone else that's listening to your talk that might be going through the same thing, where their mom had left them. They're a teenager, they're a young adult, or they're even a child that is wrapping their head around this, and hearing your story is like, okay, there's a way out of this.
Yeah, that's so true. And because sometimes successful entrepreneurs had a realization the days that, just say we grow up with a chaotic environment, or, there was a lot of trauma. Oftentimes, I've read it in a book too with Dan Martell, entrepreneurs can also thrive because they're used to that high pressure and up and down. But in a way, if we don't process any traumas and whatnot, these things can definitely come up as well in certain situations when you don't want them to. So it's all about regulating your emotions and just healing that trauma in order to open the success, the things that are meant for us as well. I want to talk about systems, tools, and real world application. So tell us about the happy file concept for entrepreneurs. How does this build business confidence?
The happy file is really just your way of like kind of humble bragging about what you've done. So you document all of the good things that happen to you. So this could be praise from a testimonial, praise from a customer, praise from someone you work with, a service provider, or even just in general, someone on the streets praises you for what you've done. And on your press release, if you're getting your positive press, I would document that. And you'll have like a running list. It's almost like a form of a gratitude journal, although it's mainly a journal of all the good things that happened to you. And you just document that over the year. And then moments when you're having those self-doubt, when you find yourself spiraling, you can pull out the happy file and kind of help you remain connected to why you do what you do. Now, I wrote it in my book in context for actors because essentially actors are entrepreneurs at the heart of it. And it's a very challenging business with a lot of competition, just like with most entrepreneurs. They can be overly saturated, especially depending on the sector you're in, the geographical region you're in. There can be a saturation point. But the main thing is just to remain connected to your why, because it helps you connect to your why. Like, why did you do this? What is the main reason you decided to go into this business? It's not necessarily the money. I want to hear about what's the reason that you decided to make that sacrifice to be an entrepreneur, to be that business owner. Why did you do that? The happy file helps you stay grounded and connected to that why.
I like that. And what's the process for breaking through mental barriers that people have that limit the business growth? Do you have a certain process for that? Because, like I said, some people, they think small. Entrepreneurs sometimes think small, and I think it's a matter of self-worth as well. But I've read a book, The Power of Thinking Big. So sometimes you can just think big and put big, massive goals. And then even if you achieve half of it, it's still an accomplishment. But some
Of
people still
course,
have that mental barrier that limits their growth, their business growth.
because sometimes depending on the environment, goes back to our family origin story. Were we told to be quiet down, don't be so loud, be seen, not heard? And so therefore we just want to hide. You see this a lot when people like in their meetings, they'll raise their hand like really softly, like, okay, and they act very submissive. They want to think small. Now, thinking big is great, but at the same time, you also want to be realistically too at the same time. But I think definitely go for it. Whatever goal it is you're going to do, I mean, definitely go out and do it. And the biggest block is just not taking action. Going back to the procrastination thing. I'll do this tomorrow, or I'll do this next week, or next month, or next year I'll get around to doing this. Start today. The one trap to get out of that someday mentality. Because I see this a lot with entrepreneurs. Someday I'm going to expand, or someday I'm going to do this, or someday I'm going to offer this product. No, start today. Now, you may not be able to offer it tomorrow, but start today with at least going towards that goal. So take these small steps, small actions that you take. There's plenty of small actions you can take. Break it down and take these little small steps to go wherever you need to go.
Interesting. Let's talk about opportunity, growth, and mental clarity. How do entrepreneurs become opportunity magnets through psychology?
The main thing is being open and learning new things and trying out new things. Being really open-minded is important because you never know. Like, see people say, I'm not going to go to this networking event. It's not worth my time. How do you know that? You never know when you could meet somebody at a networking event that open up a lot of doors for you, or that you can help them out too. Taking advantage of every opportunity too. Another thing, with going back to the perfectionism thing too, biggest mistake entrepreneurs make is they don't delegate. There's a myth that we need to stay busy. And I think there's a difference between being productive and being busy. There's people, I have no time, I'm working 68 hours a week. Well, what are you doing? Is that 68 hours productive? Because I know some really successful people that are working maybe 25, 30 hours a week. But those 25 or 30 hours a week, they're laser focused and they're doing it the smart way, innovative way, and they're using their time and their resources. That would be the biggest thing too. And this is why, again, having a coach can be helpful, a business coach or a system. So this is why it's important to have systems, even if you think I can just wing it. And that's the biggest mistake I think entrepreneurs make. I don't have a system, I just wing it. And even if you have a system, sometimes you may go deviate a little bit from that, but at least you have a framework already. Calendar is great. A great system to start off, putting things on your calendar.
Tracking everything down as well. For me, everything is saved on a Google Sheet, training, everything, so that I can delegate it to the next person if need be. And there's always a checklist of things so that you can always delegate and train another person to take the low performing tasks, the busy tasks, so that I can focus on the growth of the business. That's where the leader should be, focusing the most on the growth part of it too.
Right, the growth. And that's the biggest thing with business. It should always be growth, and having that growth mindset is important, or just that framework of growth. Because I think a mistake that a lot of business owners and just general people make is being comfortable and being stagnant and staying at the same level. You'll often hear these same entrepreneurs wondering why their business is not taking off. Well, because you're not taking off, by doing something new, by trying to get better and better every time, every month, every year, and changing the way you do things.
Yeah, growth is super important. You don't want to stay stagnant, especially when it comes to the revenue, because there's inflation and we always have to keep growing. I always make sure that every year we're trying to grow and at least track the numbers every month as well. But what if someone is drowning in business and overwhelmed? And if they are delegating, but they're still drowning, what advice would you give them to help them create some mental clarity?
What advice I would give them is for mental clarity would be to start delegating a little bit. Not delegating, but even in your mind, let's start auditing what you're doing. Why are you still feeling overwhelmed? And then look at all the tasks and say, and you can put them in columns. What's absolutely essential, column A. Column B, what's important but can wait. And column C is this really necessary? Sort of thing. And a lot of people would be very surprised when they trim it down a bit, when they trim down that list, or realize how much maybe nice to have, but is really essential this week or this month that you do this. And a lot of times it's no. So it might require and do an audit or a restock of what it is your day to day duties are. What you're delegating, what you're doing yourself, and then is it yielding you returns? Because if it's not yielding you returns or any type of breakthrough, then it's time to try something else.
That's true. What separates entrepreneurs who survive challenges from those who thrive through them? Because sometimes for me, I've learned to change my mindset as well when it comes to challenges. I'm learning about this course, which teaches us all the challenges that we face. It's preparing us for something even better. So when I have a challenge or when I'm going through things that are overwhelming and there's a lot of pressure, the course has taught me that you've got to just say, pause. What a pleasure. Your soul is being prepared for many abundance and blessings to come. So that's just a different way of flipping things around and changing the mindset as well. But what do you think separates entrepreneurs who survive challenges from those who thrive through them?
Well, the one thing is mindset, I would say, is the biggest factor. And you can even tell in general language they use, it's like, hey, how's it going? I'm hanging in there. I'm like, that sounds a little challenging, intense. What are you hanging on to when you say you're hanging in there? Because it sounds to me that you're really conveying subtext, like I'm having trouble, I'm hanging on all tightly. So I think that it's having that mindset, enjoying what you're doing is the biggest thing too. Enjoying what you're doing and being able to compartmentalize. So in other words, very successful people, especially those that thrive, have boundaries that they set. There's a certain amount of time of the week that's family time, alone time. And then there's time to develop their business. They're not working at their business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They may take the weekends off or 1 or 2 days during the week. That's family time. So learning to set boundaries. Last year, I did one of Tony Robbins' business mastery courses. And the one thing that he said, which really strung through, was especially with entrepreneurs, is are you a business owner or are you a business operator? Because an operator is one that you'll see them working 15 hours a day and struggling to make ends meet. A business owner is still works hard, is less stressed, and really learning to trust their staff.
Their staff?
Yeah. Or people working under the contractors or under them. So what I would often say, the biggest thing is mindset. Are you sleeping enough? Are you taking care of yourself? What are you doing outside? What hobbies do you have outside of your business? Because I see this a lot too, where people don't take vacations, or if they do take their vacation, they have their cell phone, their laptop, or their iPad, and they're always on it. And it's like, no, you're just working remotely. A vacation means putting down your phone, putting away your iPad, putting away your computer for some time and learning to trust and let go, because that's a big thing too. Like, trust and let go of your employees or your contract staff, because that's the biggest thing too. You have to really learn to trust them too.
Yeah, I totally agree on that one because I have virtual staff in the Philippines and I fully trust them because they've been with me for years and it's taken time just training them and just I've had to go through multiple different staff as well and let go of people that weren't reliable. But over time, I create a system and a process, a training, now it's just like you trust them and you reward them and you take care of them and they'll stay and they will be super productive for you as well. So,
And that takes too is like part of like also knowing how to delegate and how to trust. And I would say this too, you got to really show them what it is you expect from them and tell them they're not mind readers. And I think a lot of times we see these entrepreneurs like, why isn't my staff? Well, did you explain what you wanted in detail? Did you have like a standard operating procedure, a manual, or some sort of like guidebook or something, or like a template of what you want? Even to this day, like even in my business with Bramante artists, I learned now to create an intern when we have interns now, a Bible of sort. Like, this is what you want to do every day, and this is what you should be doing, or this is what I expect you to do. And then also, this is how you reach me, and I'm here for you if you need any way I can support you. Because usually, when employees or contractors quit or staff quit, if they don't feel valued or they don't really know what they're doing, because as a leader, you haven't effectively shown them what you want them to do and how you want them to do that.
How would you personally define success?
It's subjective, so I may define it differently than other people would. I would often say doing what you love, getting to do what you love to do, and comfortably. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be wealthy or rich necessarily off the bat, but it's being happy and authentic and living the life you want. Because when that happens, everything else is going to follow. So the one thing, especially going back to what I said, I work with actors now. It's a very tough industry. It's very saturated to work, and show business. There's only really a 2 or 3% chance that you're going to reach like A-list level. But the way I look at it is like, okay, let's not make that the end goal. Let's make the goal, do you get to do what you love for the rest of your life? Everything else will work itself out.
Yeah, that's true. I love listening to different people's versions of success, and I think it changes over time too, depending on the stages that you're in life. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience? Any key messages, anything that I've missed that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I would say the biggest thing is to take action. Put things on your calendar. Do not put the word someday. Someday doesn't exist. So, here's like, well, someday I'll do this. Someday I'll write a book, or someday I'm going to start this business. Start today. Don't wait for the new year. Start today.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And where can our entrepreneur audience find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to follow you?
The best is LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I post a lot of thought articles and videos, and I would be happy to have conversations with you, even jump on a brief call with you if I can support you in any way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Albert. It was lovely to speak to you.
It's great to speak with you too. I'm glad we had this interview. Thank you.